Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Outreach Committee meeting on October 16 at the Confidential Computing Consortium. We are a community focused on open source licensed projects, securing data in use, and accelerating the adoption of confidential computing through open collaboration. Here, every member is welcome and every project meeting our criteria is welcome. We are a transparent, collaborative community. We as a member, contributor, and leaders pledge to make participation in our community a harassment-free experience for everybody. And this is FYI for antitrust policy that Linux Foundation has that CCC is following. Okay, so today we're going to go over several items as noted here in the agenda, so we can move on to the next slide. Yeah.
I have received no feedback for updates on the approval of the minutes. There's no changes requested. If there's no changes requested here, I think we can approve it and move forward. Any objections or corrections?
No objections.
That's a year none. Thank you, Ab. We can roll forward and it's automatically approved. Next slide is about committee chair and co-chair elections, which would be coming up soon. Unfortunately, I don't have timelines yet. We'll probably finalize timelines next week when we have the governing board meeting. But close to the end of October, we will send out all the nominations. And we would like the people that's been attending this meeting regularly consider the possibility of standing next year as the or the co-chair for the outreach group. And that would actually, outreach committee, that would actually give you good leverage of moving the direction of where we're going and what we participate in. So if you have an interest in that, please do consider being nominated, and the voting will follow a week after the nominations have been sent out. Any questions?
Yeah, I would also say if anyone would like to talk to me about what it involves, what it entails, I'm very happy to do that. I'm sure Kate can also give her and Leo probably give his overview of what being a chair and co-chair entails. But it's without strong and engaged co-chair and co-chair, we don't get stuff done. It's really important. You get a chance to show what you could do, and it's all about delegation and encouraging people to do stuff, Kate, right? So hopefully you can do some of that as well. Thank you.
It definitely took 2 years for me to learn that, but yes, please feel free to reach out to me for any questions you may have. And then it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun as well. I had tons of fun, and I'll still be around, so you still have me as a resource.
You're not running away.
Thank you, Kate. You and Leo did an excellent job this year, so looking forward to good nominees for next year.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take over this slide for a sec. I know it's very small. So this is not numbers that I'm married to. This is just to show the committee here before we bring it to the governing board for the proposal. But basically, so there's a 3 different portion for outreach budget that goes and being spent. One is marketing, which we have tremendous support from Jen, our marketing PM, all of the creative assets and anything that goes out in the web and social and everything else. And she writes all the blog posts and, help facilitate all of these smoothly. This is very important part of our committee and getting tons of visibility. So that's one part that is not going to be changed. Second part is the market analyst report or white paper. So I will update that on the IDC engagement in just a sec, but we have allocated this budget for use case report for this year. And for next year, since we got some inquiries from several members asking about the market trend and updated report since 2021 Everest Group's report. So we were exploring all these other options, and we're now discussing this with IDC on the white paper. So I'll go in depth into that, but that's the second bucket that takes the chunks of our money that we will be allocating. And the other one, as you're familiar with, it's events. We go to a ton of events. And so this year, compared to 2023, Outreach expanded event presence quite significantly, and as well as a sponsorship that required money. For 2025, the amount would look kind of similar, but we would be more focused on the quality of engagement. So not just sponsor, have our logo there or whatnot. We will be more intentional and meaningful about our engagement. And even if that requires a little bit more of a dollar investment, we would probably make that decision rather than just spreading across 3 different cheaper events, if that makes sense. So I did not change numbers there as well. So our budget, I was actually candidly told to reduce and then kind of reduce it down our budget, but for Outreach, we do not have any sufficient budget that we do not spend. It is very well spent across the board, and it adds a lot of value. So I really did not find anywhere to cut anything from. And below, these are the list of events. Like I said, I'm not married to any of these, but just so that we have an idea what we are looking at. And some of these we may just submit for paper and speak, and that might be good enough, but some of them we might be engaged a little bit more. Mike, you're on mute. Mike Purcell.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. I was going to say, we may come under pressure from the GB to reduce this after all. And I think there's a big decision to be made here, which is that, the 2 big blocks are the events and the research. And we could decide that we want to do fewer events or less quality events. I think that would have significant impact on our reach and the visibility. Or we could decide, for instance, that we weren't going to do a white paper or reduce the amount there. And it has a very different approach. And I think that it's important for this group to consider, if we have to balance, where do we think we get the most ROI? Because I think, shaving both probably makes little sense. Reducing one significantly rather than the other maybe makes more sense. That's my suspicion anyway, because then we can concentrate on that rather than splitting. We may be fine with both, and that's great, but I'd like to encourage people to think about that and maybe discuss it here. Is that okay, Kate? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Well, that goes to my why my hand was up too. It's like I just, in a what is essentially a $600,000 budget, 2/3 of it is events. So it's probably worth taking a look at that as our largest line item. Now, is the expense there mostly in sponsorship or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be sponsorship and any on-site cost that goes into it, but that's very little compared to sponsorship cost.
Okay.
And so sponsorship generally gives us 2 things, I understand. One is a speaking slot, and I'm always happy to fill those, but I also love to have other members working with me or just instead of me to fill those slots. And the other thing is booth access. And again, that's a great opportunity for particularly smaller companies who are members to have access to these events and to be really, really involved. And I think in both of these, there's great opportunities for members to do very well out of these and to make the most out of them. Not to mention our open source projects, of course, which is very important.
Are folks taking advantage of that opportunity, or is it basically
They really
you or
are
Sal
beginning
standing
to.
alone? in the booth.
No. It's really not. I mean, Sal, I think we'll be talking about KubeCon North America shortly, and RSA last year as well, and we hope to do the same this year. So actually, no, the booths really are beginning to be done, partly by great work by Sal and Kate and others to drum up that use. So it really is being used, I think. Kate, Sal, do you want to maybe speak to that?
I
Yeah.
will make one quick note on that. I will say the CCC booth, having been a Linux rep in the past and being at the CCC booth, it has a very different effect for marketing that's extremely strong. So instead of going out to your specific booth and trying to find a rep for CC, they just come straight to our booth. So the more CC specific content I can get printed out, handed in links to them, it is an incredibly good way to make sure that you get the right leads from these events, even if they're not able to find the right lead at your specific booth. So yes, we can always improve engagement, but I just need more resources to bring to the booth. A person is great, but half a piece of paper or a link for your your latest resources is great.
And it becomes really stronger. I've really have seen that at RSA from having all these members at our booth. It was perceived really positively, and then people actually come to us, and then we have tons of resources and people to actually reference, and they can take them through their solution and whatnot. But when they come to our booth, for example, there's no like one vendor specific agenda. So this is the community, and with that in mind, people are way more open to stop by and have a conversation and learn more about, even in the zoo environment like RSA. So
not that anyone has any voices left by the end of the show, but that's good, right?
I mean, I'm going to go over that as well, the RSA plan briefly, but definitely worth it. So much worth it than individual booths, in my opinion.
Well, in the spirit of exploration and no other agenda other than that is, could we cut that 400,000 down with kind of more more guerrilla tactics, things like, hey, instead of being a sponsor of the thing, we host a lunch or a breakfast the morning of, or
yes,
cocktail hour, confidential computing cocktail hour somewhere else, where it's, it maybe costs us 10 grand in beer and appetizers, but it's less than what we would do if we were sponsoring the booth.
absolutely.
I mean, of course, it needs to be, I would say, equally effective or proportionately greater, more effect. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I think you brought a really great point. So that's our intention as well. I think we have to evaluate the ROI that we're getting. So for example, speaking opportunity is pretty important as well. When it gives us a speaking opportunity, or some events do not give us speaking, but we do get booths. But for RSA, we would take the booth for sure. But for maybe other events, maybe we can route our attention into doing side event or co-located event, or those kind of a social event to maximize impact. So we need to gauge those ROIs depending on, and in this amount, I'm just making sure that I make it clear these amount are what is kind of projected. Doesn't have to go into sponsorship necessarily, but we could do something with it. So anyways, all that to say, I wanted to be visual how much it may require for us to do any kind of a creative outlet, either sponsorship or.
And I would also add, sorry, Mike, that there's also other costs associated with sort of arranging dinners or cocktails and stuff. In that, we when it's not sort of off the shelf stuff we can just pick up. There's time and resource costs associated, not just the 10K for the cocktails, finding it and then negotiating and working with those people. And that may be things that we can't do. We have to ask the LF events folks to do, and that costs money as well. So there is a
Yeah.
balance to be made here, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you may cut out, you may cut out, $10,000-$15,000 in sponsorship costs, but you just wind up paying it in audience acquisition and
Possibly,
event management of
and
your
again,
own.
this is not my thing. Sal has their hand up as well.
Yeah, one thing that I think that we should be calculating in this is the post-event value of assets. So I pay a lot of attention to specifically when in the year and if there are recordings provided. So one of these things that I think on this list that was extremely high value to us to be able to get content and propagate communication last year was, for example, OC3, because those recordings got out early in the year and the recordings are incredibly valuable. So it's not just the event and the in-person element that we should consider in the cost value evaluation. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there because that's something we really should pay attention to.
That's a great point as well.
Yeah.
I
Should we
second
just
that totally on the post event. So the hybrid nature of attendance is also like something that in the last couple of years has been very like an actual reality that we live in.
So let's just also ask the question: how would we, as the outreach committee, react if, for instance, the GB said, "Well, 100K is an awful lot of amount for a white paper. Why don't you just cut that completely?" What would be the thinking there?
Okay, and then just to provide the background, we can cut it down, everybody. We will be covering less topics under this white paper, for example. So there is always the area, how much importance this white paper is going to bring it to you as a company, and then we kind of have to evaluate that, not just the dollar amount. Is this worth the investment for bringing the ROI for the companies and the members?
And my suspicion is that in terms of visibility, having something that we can promote and put out there, actually, this is really very positive and a good thing. Having an up-to-date thing, we can say, this is the state of the market, this is where things are going, and give it is a really important piece of collateral. Alongside what Sal was talking about, video things after shows. So we have to think about in that direction as well. I don't have an answer. I just want to sort of bubble up the conversation if we can.
Yeah, would love your feedback and input and what you feel. Just know that we have an option to reduce or stay, but we need your opinion.
So I'm very like from my perspective on the report on the market research, having an analyst report has a lot of value from the objectivity and the neutrality to a certain extent, or definitely weight that as Kate mentioned, it all depends on the content, and I think we can be very smart about what we focus on in the report. But I'm very supportive personally of the white paper, especially with a company like IDC.
That's really helpful. I'm not surprised either.
Yeah, I'll make one last comment and then I think that we're good here. But one of the things that I really want us to keep in mind as we are looking at the Horizon Line 2025 is the idea of asset avalanching. This is really important for me when I'm trying to get things to have a social vector online. And all that means is I want to identify as many high value assets across a year and exactly when they're going to occur so that I can lead up to them and lead away from them if they need to lead to another action. The highest value asset that we could possibly produce for all members next year is probably this report, because in terms of an avalanching asset, that is going to be opened by everyone. So that's the last comment.
just think about how many times people have been using Everest report since 2021. So
I'd
think
love
that's
to
a
know
great
how
point.
many hits we've had on that URL since it was published. How many downloads, if we can find that out somehow.
I bet we can. It's on our website, so we can have Jen to kind of dig in and get some data. That would be helpful. Okay.
We should probably move on. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Kate,
So
let's you and
keep
I
that in mind.
talk offline.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
get you
Thanks,
lined
Jen.
Thank you. All right. So we can move on to next. All right, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Kate. I would like to provide a brief status update on the recent activities of the working group and our progress. First, on the messaging guide, the working group has successfully completed the first draft of both the messaging guide and the marketing message. We would love to get your feedback during this outreach committee meeting. The next milestone is to address any feedback we received today, and we aim to present the first iteration of the messaging guide to the governing board by October 23rd. Our final target is to have the complete and polished deliverables by December 1st. Moving on to analyst reports and engagement, we've had productive discussions with IDC and continuing the review of the proposal and scope for the custom survey project. And additionally, in the last working group meeting, the working group shared key insights gathered from the PSR conference. These included use cases that were covered, along with emerging regulatory trends that are relevant to our ongoing activities and initiatives. So these concludes the update from the working group. I really appreciate your feedback. And now I would like to hand it off to Julian, who will share the messaging guide and seek feedback from this outreach group before we bring the revised draft to the governing board on October 23rd. I believe Kate already shared the messaging guide draft prior to this meeting, so hopefully that you've had a time to review it. If not, feel free to review it now or offline and comment directly in the document.
Okay, I think there was a miscommunication. I did not. I thought you were gonna send it out. So we actually did not send it out to the group, I guess. But let's have Julian to kind of walk us through briefly, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you for the
Sounds-
clarification.
Sounds good. Let me try to share my screen, maybe. Share. So, hi everyone. I'm Julian. I think it's the first time I'm joining here. So I'm at a conference, so apologies for crappy conference Wi-Fi. But so we have been putting this together, I guess, with feedback from the messaging guide, the working group for a while. So as all of you know, the focus has mainly been on shifting away from defining what is confidential computing and to say why use confidential computing. Towards this, we have been primarily focusing on identifying the appropriate use cases. And we have identified 3 use cases here, and I will just walk everyone roughly through those use cases. And I guess while I'm kind of going through this, it'd be good if everyone can keep 1 or 2 things in mind. One, we'd like to strike an appropriate balance between what is kind of a good amount of detail versus something that is not too technical, and also whether the identified audience would, how the identified audience would perceive this, right? So all of you have expertise in these, all of you have expertise in these specific domains. So if we can kind of say people in this domain would find this valuable, and yes, no, why not? So I think that's really what we are kind of looking for. Okay, any questions? Otherwise, I can kind of jump straight in and walk through the individual use cases. Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just let's dive into it.
Yeah. Okay, so first, the first use case that we kind of identify was using confidential computing for generative AI. So this one, so here, I don't want to read through this. I will encourage everyone to read through this, but let me set the background for that here. We are considering a scenario where AI service provider would use a public cloud, which provides confidential computing to host their AI services. So AI enterprise or organization using public cloud to host AI services, and they would have their own customers. So that is the background you can kind of picture, you can keep in your mind. And here, what we want to promote is 2 or 3 different scenarios. So one scenario is this AI company can now tell their customers that, hey, all the inference prompts that you send to your model, now we cannot read it. So your data of their customers are safe. So that is a big plus for them. So that's a point that we want to focus there. For the cloud provider itself, it is valuable. So now the cloud provider can, by providing these confidential environments, the cloud provider can get the businesses of a new set of clients, that is the AI service providers. And for customers also, customers running on proprietary data, this is a valuable guarantee that they would like to have. Last but not the least, many of these AI service providers may have fine-tuned publicly available models for their own needs. So the model itself may have IP. So model itself, yeah, you can say the fine-tuned model would be an IP for them, and it would give them more confidence to move their valuable IP to a public cloud. So these are the main benefits that we want to highlight here. So I did go back and forth about splitting these into.
There is a
Yeah, go
hand
ahead.
up.
Go ahead, Kate. I
Oh.
couldn't.
Yeah, hey, Julie, I think she's just calling out that it's Mike Aaron Jones. I think one of the things you might want to consider is it seems like the focus is heavily on the model itself, you know, like protecting either what's going on inside the LLM. And you might want to consider expanding the scope a bit to the whole data pipeline that surrounds that. So there's all of the data acquisition, data prep, data, storage, inference, output, and storage, just so you're thinking whole pipeline rather than just maybe the inference part of it. So or maybe that happens further down in the document, but that just struck me as something that you may want to consider of just broadening it to consider the whole pipeline of data that leads up to that inference.
Right. So that's a
And
good
the
point.
provenance.
We
Sorry.
did talk about provenance when in the supply chain a little bit, but I think it's a feedback. I think it's good feedback and something. So essentially, I guess that's a guidance that we can use, right? So how narrow or broader do we want the focus to be? If we want the whole AI pipeline to be, if we want our focus to be on a broader pipeline, we can definitely reorient that a little bit more. Right now, like you suggested, it is a bit more on hosting your AI service in a cloud. So that is kind of that is a bit more a specific use case, because the whole process is fairly complex. Acquiring data, signing provenance if needed, CELSA comes into picture there. Sometimes, maybe not always, and then the trading process, which is again very compute intensive operation. And then finally, you have this publicly available, let's say, even hosted in Hugging Face kind of models. So what kind of industry do we want to
I don't think
target?
this is 4 paragraphs of additional help. I think it's consider a phrasing or a line about
Absolutely. I think I understand
end-to-end
that.
protection throughout the AI pipeline.
Correct.
From training to response.
That's great. Yeah, that's we can definitely make a change there. Any other comments? Okay, I'll go to second use case. It's a confidential computing for multi-party collaboration. Do you want to walk through this, Rachel, or should I just go through?
Go for it.
I will, I will go for it. All right, so this is also, I think some of this was also explored in the case for confidential computing guide, which the CCC put out last year or 2 years back. I don't remember exactly. So here we are kind of looking at almost three sub scenarios. The first one being enabling multiple organizations, all of this under the theme of enabling multiple organizations to securely share and analyze data. And we are within that, we're kind of focusing on one, fraud detection for financial services. So this is the notion that often transactional data that goes across multiple banking services, it is more difficult to detect fraud in such scenarios. You need bank one to collaborate with bank two to track the transactions across banks. So CC TEEs are a great environment where they can all be, where we can all provide guarantees to these different institutions that your data is safe and leak proof. So that's number one. Two is in the pharmaceutical domain doing drug discovery. So here also we can imagine there is a lot of R&D data that is very, very confidential. People in this domain are very reluctant to move their data and compute to the cloud because of the sensitivity of the data again. So CC would be an ideal candidate for such workloads as well. The third point here is again regarding sharing data, but here a little bit more on PHI data, patient health data, where you have regulation pro, very data, confidential data, which people would like to do compute on. Again, data that people are very reluctant to move to the cloud. And this is the third subpart that we are highlighting here. Okay, so many here may be familiar with these three from before. And I think the last use case that we wanted to talk to was the confidential computing for supply chain. So here again, this is, I think, the use case for which we were soliciting feedback from the broader community. So what we want to do here is we can think of it as two angles. One, we do want to ensure that any kind of supply chain attacks, confidential computing can help prevent supply chain attacks. So that's kind of the message that we want to give. Many things here are still fairly new. I don't think this is as mature as some of the other use cases that we already discussed. So the goal here is to say, now more and more, even for AI services, AI models, and any other regular software releases, we can expect to have signatures for those binaries. And then as part of the attestation process in your CC environment, you can start to do attestation, not just of your OS and boot and firmware parameters, but you can start attesting things higher up the stack. So that would be one way to kind of ensure that once you set up your CC TEE up, you can make sure everything is attested, and then once attested, it's further tamper-proof. So that's one thing that we would like to promote. And one more, so we kind of mentioned how we can use the signs and provenance that we get from SALSA. That would be a potential inclusion. That's something that we still have to kind of figure out how exactly all of this integrates, because I don't think technically we have all the projects working very seamlessly yet. But as an idea, I do think it works, gels very well with CC. And not just the runtime, but also the build process itself. Even during the build process, to sign your bills for your release, you can use confidential computing environments, right? So ensuring the build process itself is tamper-proof, you can leverage CC. So those are the main highlights there. Questions, comments, let me know.
This is Yulia from
do-
Super Protocol. A question about use cases. All these kind of things could be done in like Web2 world or using Web3 blockchain techniques to add or maybe enrich the use cases. Should we look at the use cases with Web3 as something as a standalone, or looking at, for example, multi-party collaboration? Would you assume to add there other approaches to fulfill the use case itself? How is best to proceed here?
So I think there's a question here. We have a use cases white paper where we can add more use cases generally. I think what this group is thinking of doing is that if we're going to concentrate on a small number, let's say 3 or 4 main things for the positioning, this is probably where we're starting. So maybe Web3 is ready for that. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it should be part of the use cases white paper. I don't know. Have I described right, Rachel, kind of where you're going with this, Rachel and Julian?
I can comment. So if I may, so yes, I think this is basically what the approach, Yulia, to this is like what are the use cases that we collectively thought it would be very impactful from an audience perspective. The other thing is we stayed a little bit basically away from, let me rephrase. We try to strike a balance between getting to implementation and general use cases and like to address different audiences. So that also had an impact on the selection of the use cases. That doesn't mean that we will not add to other use cases in the future, but basically we wanted to get something going, and that's the rationale and also the guidance we had from the governing board. So Mike, I don't know if that kind of aligns a little bit with what we talked about in the GB context. Does that make sense, Yulia?
I'm sorry. I think I might misunderstood you. So there are several key top priority use cases that have been identified for this white paper. So if the use case is like on the high level business use case, right? If anything we should add from our side to make it like, I don't know, more covering other aspects, should we do it, or we just should I don't know, wait until Web3 specifics would be also on the list?
At this moment, my preference is really, at least within, we can discuss that in the working group. This is not my own decision, obviously the working group, and I welcome obviously your input there to continue with what we already established and get it out the door, and then we can add additional use cases because there will be, and I hope there will be more use cases, and that's what we were pushing for. But we just wanted to keep the exercise focused and get something out. So we look forward actually for additional use cases once we get this out the door. That's my kind of the working group approach that we started with.
I think that was always the intention, that this will kick off as a first iteration, and it will always have the updated version with the updated and various different use cases as well, because it's not one and done kind of a deal. It will continue to evolve. So that's kind of how we had this in mind in the beginning when we kicked off this.
So the short, like maybe a short answer is like we welcome you for you to bring other use cases so that we can, the next iteration we'll add them. That's maybe the more direct answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the next step is what Julian just showed us is going to be reviewed by all of you first this week and then beginning of next week, and we will be presenting to the governing board, and that would be Once that is finalized, we will publish that as the white paper under our website. But also there is in the document, you will go in and see there is the internal document where it's summarized the version as well, so that you can easily kind of pick and choose what like quick kind of a summary look of what you're looking for. So take a look at that. But mainly we're looking for the feedback on that Google Doc that Julian just showed us. So feel free to leave lots of comments and feedback there before next Tuesday.
Another point, just quickly, and thank everybody obviously who contributed directly, and obviously Julian, Rachel, and others in the document itself, as well as the comments, and also the tag. I think maybe we could send a note to the tag to also remind us, like, hey, have a look as well. Just kind of if some people haven't
Oh
yet
yeah, we
had
should
the
go in
chance.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely go in and give an overview to tag as well tomorrow if Dan can squeeze us in.
I
But
think you
thank you
probably
so
can.
much.
I think there's been a cancellation of one of the plans or a postponement, so there's a decent chance that there probably will be time.
That's
think.
great.
And
We'll
do
check
the
with
notes
Julian.
tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, Rian, you're gonna, oh, sorry, who's gonna check with the tag
Yes,
to make sure?
I will.
Oh, okay.
I will check. And
Okay, perfect.
who should I ping? Julian, Rachel, or all three of you?
And myself, three of us. So
Okay.
Julian, here, and obviously Rachel.
I will get you a slot on that meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, team. This is really well managed project. All right, next up. We're gonna move on a little bit quickly. So this is the IDC engagement. So we met with Philip Buse and Emmanuel, I can't pronounce last name, from the IDC, along with their VP of a research and a sales rep. And so basically what we brought up is that our priorities, generally, we want to cover, our main verticals, which is the healthcare, FSI, and government agencies, but also emerging technologies like emerging use cases is like multi-party computation, AI, and supply chain. And they're also conducting this custom survey in specific countries. So we identify these countries: North America, the UK, Germany, Switzerland, China, and Singapore. And these are also negotiable as well, but these are what we discussed in our initial call. And focus on public cloud versus on-prem, we agreed that we will cover 70% public cloud and 30% on-prem. And with that initial call, we did receive the proposal from IDC. And what's on the next step is we are evaluating the criteria, the coverage topics, and the countries, and all this criteria as well. So right now we have Mike Purcell, myself, Laura from NVIDIA, and Rachel from IBM involved in this communication. But if you would like to take a look at this proposals and kind of do a quick working group to evaluate what is actually our top priorities to cover in this report, and obviously, that'll affect the budget, but I would really like to stay under 100K if not lower. But if you'd like to be part of this conversation and negotiation just within our internally, let me know. You can let me know now, or you can let me know, drop me a note later as well.
And I'd particularly say if that people have strong views about the verticals, about the use cases, and about the geographies, and whether the public cloud on-prem mix is right, now's a good time to say. If we got too many countries or too much on-prem, now's the time to say, because it'll make a big difference, and we need to go back to them fairly soon on this, I think.
What's the timeline?
Well, we want to get moving as soon as possible, right, Kate? So we we could, if you give us feedback in the next week or so, that will be very helpful.
Yeah, if you raise your hand, I'll include you in our internal email thread, and it will kind of move quickly like that. We'd like to kind of get firm our stance, and then we can go back in with talk with IDC, preferably in the coming week. So in about like week or week and a half time, I would love for internal CCC to discuss about this feedback on this proposal.
Kate, do you mind adding me to the email thread, please?
I would love to.
Thanks. Just by the way, like looking at the description here, nothing that jumps to me. That's what all makes sense. Just I don't expect anything. Just really, I guess we get into the details. Of what we're going
And
to do.
I think the sort of thing that I wonder is, we've got North America, UK, Germany, Switzerland, China, Singapore. That's 6 territories. If we were to reduce that by 1, that might allow them to do quite a lot, a lot more work on one of the, across those. Do we have too many there? Do we need Switzerland and Germany? Do we need China and Singapore? The answer may well be yes, but I think it's a great opportunity right now to say, you know what, maybe we should change it a bit. Well, so Mike FJ, right, says Singapore seems very specific. It is. It's also the place in Asia Pac, outside PRC, where the most is going on and where the regulators are most engaged. But we could say, Japan, huge market, but lagging a bit behind. Maybe it'd be good to know where that's coming. So that was the thinking there.
So
Okay.
I'm actually, I'm sorry. I meant to ask if sorry, someone was talking. Sorry, go ahead.
No, hang on. Just one quick. So yes, Singapore banking hub, big with FSI. So I think it's good. It's just, I think if we were looking for a second geo in Asia, I would go for maybe a bigger place. Japan, Korea would be one of the 2 that I would.
And
slot in.
They're probably 2 to 3 years behind Singapore, I think, maybe even more, which is kind of. Well, that's. I'm thinking maybe we need to find out that we're wrong about that. I mean, these are all the questions that we should be asking, but that's kind of my feeling at the moment.
Yeah, just one quick note on that. In terms of like the constraining regulatory horizon lines with all of these, yeah, it's true. I think that Singapore is getting information out faster, but prioritize this as a white paper and also consider additive white papers that we may want to include later on, right? So like Japan is coming out with a bunch of regulatory changes at the end of this year. Might be good to have that as an add-on later in the year.
Yep.
Just from a logistical perspective here, like the thing that jumped to me, like, will this be discussed or presented to the GB or not, like the project, or just discussing this in the outreach committee?
It'll definitely go to the GB.
Yeah, we have it presented to them, and we'll definitely update them as well.
Okay, so I think one thing that jumped to me when I read this was what's the criteria for the geographies. It makes sense. I'm not questioning that, but just maybe add in the criteria that was.
Oh, I
can see Germany as a proxy for the EU, for example, kind of areas like it just trying to understand the logic there. I think if someone could question that, and
the logic was these are some that came off the top of our heads. Germany, because it has very strong data protection and PII laws, it's part of the EU, but has stronger than most of them. Switzerland, because it's banking and outside the EU. Those are the thinking there, but you could almost have one rather than both of them. So, yeah.
No, okay. Again, the list makes sense to me. I think I was just maybe thinking I would actually second Mike's and Sal's comment about Japan from just what I've seen personally.
Yeah.
And otherwise the list makes sense. I'm just saying, like, for when we do these things, we look at them 6 months down the road, or even maybe less. It's like, why did we select this? It's just, I like when things are explicit in terms of what was the
Absolutely.
criteria we chose.
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I'm in Japan in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be, asking around there as well, of course.
Perfect. So we'll take it offline and I'll include Ab in our conversation. We already discussed the coverage of the topic a little bit, so you just jump right into it. Okay. Upcoming events, other events are stayed the same. Only thing that I wanted to update is the RSAC. I see that additionally what we covered here in the previous call, we have submitted all female panel at RSAC with Laura, Rachel, Vinny, and myself. Another thing is we are securing the 10 by 20 booth space for next year to allow having the exhibition section as well as the demo zone. So this will be quite significant and pretty excited about this, and more to come. Right now we're securing the spot and the contract and all that jazz, but just wanted to give a heads up so that y'all have this in mind. The CCC will have a booth secured and you will be able to leverage, which is awesome.
We also have a
Moving on.
talk submitted at RSAC. I don't know. So, do these submissions typically go as a submission from CCC, or is it from individual organizations?
No, it depends really. I mean, if individual organizations, we'd love to hear about them. As it happens, the CCC has collaborate. We've used the opportunity for members to collaborate together to put them together. So if you are a member of the CCC and you have one, please allow us to list it. But it's not a CCC specific, but if it's talking about confidential computing, we'd love to hear about it.
Okay, I'll send a note in the Slack channel.
So the RSA extended their submission again?
Again?
Check. Not a second time, but it may be close.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, because we really scrambled like crazy working on the weekend. But anyways,
it's
okay.
always the way.
All right, so that's it. And then moving on to the next. Okay, KubeCon, Sal.
Okay, so there's going to be 3 quick slides here around engagement. This is just the one to say the swag that we're providing. My note here is tell me if you like the look and feel of these, the keychains, and the thing on that side there is a very bad digital rendering of a very cheap mint box. And on that mint box is the word cloud from our blogs this year. So I think that's very good for a sort of mid-level if they're going to go back and research and they need the key terms. The branded stickers, if you do not like these, that's great. Let me know in the next week. I am happy to make any changes to these so that they look and feel more like a brand that you would want associated with your brand. But these were my first ideas. Next slide.
So how many brand stickers are you planning to print out of those 4? How many are you wanting?
Okay, so back to the previous slide one more time. Sorry. Stickers. So here's the plan. So I'm going to print out about 300 of the confidential computing logos in small and large this time. And then for those other ones, those are going to be like 100 each. At like 100 quantity, I'm just providing them options. When we order these in mass, the total order is going to be around $250. So if there's any of these that you particularly think are going to trend well or don't think would trend well or don't want to have on the booth, just let me know and we'll make changes and edits now.
Okay. My friend just mentioned maybe the last one, security at FA level.
Yeah, I like
that. Not Farron Jones, it's me. It's Purcell. Awkward.
Oh, Mike Purcell, sorry.
Yeah, happy to make the change. Okay, and so we have 2 forms of engagement that I'm trying to do here. I have one question on this slide, and it's a style question. Let me know in the comments here if you like style 1, which is what happens if I'm just having fun, and number 2 is style if I'm following the CCC style guide, which I assume is what people would prefer. So let me know which one of those you like, and here's how it's going to work. The end of today, so we did also provide a bingo card at RSA. It did not perform as well as I would have liked, so there's a few things that I'll be changing to this. If you are on this, so there's going to be two sides that we print. One side is the bingo and one side is the scavenger hunt, which is going to be on the next slide. But if you are on one of these, meaning that you have a specific time and location that we're expecting you to have additional CC stuff, I'm sending a specific email out to you today to confirm that before these go to print. So the bingo is only things happening during the cube crawl and the information that they can get just at that time. Next slide. For the dual side of these, whichever version you like, the super clean one or the Salt Lake City one, let me know in the comments. And on this, I'm going to finalize this today. And this is very important for all members here present looking to get value out of KubeCon. This side is going to be what they can use. And instead of having that center image, I'm going to replace both sides of these with a QR code that has these digitally rendered as well with links directly to the schedule. I'm going to tell them exactly where they need to go at that conference to capture every single CC talk and demo that is external to our booth. So I'm going to send that out today. And that I think is going to be particularly important. It's not about them finishing this or getting swag. It's about them knowing exactly where to orient, particularly on this slide, if they are someone that's seriously interested in purchasing CC. So if there's any additional information you want there or an additional link on there to a one-on-one, something like that, that's where the serious attendees are going to orient their attention. So I think that is the final note on KubeCon. Do just let me know in the comments here or on Slack by the end of today if you like that style 1 or style 2. And then I think for now, that is it on this slide. Questions for those? Okay, yes, I do have just one quick note on FOSDEM. FOSDEM is coming up. It's absolutely in our line of awareness. I am working with Fritz to figure out a couple of panels and I'll be reaching out to people, but we also need to get ahead on figuring out a location for that and considering the constraints of budget. I've sent out a few emails on potential locations for a sort of cocktail hour. I also have experience preparing events at FOSDEM as a reproducibility engineer PhD student, so I can do it on budget in Brussels. So I've reached out to places where I think that we can do this nice, affordably, and close to the venue, and a couple of places that are free options just so that we've got backups. So FOSDEM is under development, but really what I want to make sure is to know who's going to be submitting and to recommend that anyone does submit if they would like to have good developer-oriented content at the beginning of the year that I can reshare. That is it.
Amazing. We're 1 minute over, but thank you so much, Sal. I think, for KubeCon, if anyone has any opinion or feedback, please let Sal know ASAP. But if you do not hear back until your deadline, please don't let us kind of block you. Go ahead and make the decision yourself. But also, in FOSDEM, y'all are aware that some details that Fritz and team presented last meeting. So just keep that in mind. And we probably will likely to support. It's a free sponsorship. It's free dev room proposals so that Fritz and Sal are working on. So that's what's coming up. We will probably need local staff there. That's probably the only thing. And otherwise, CCC will be potentially sponsoring the social hour to accommodate 70 to 100 developer or the audience that we will have at the dev room. So that is, like Sal mentioned, it's very inexpensive ways to really engage, and there are tons of options in Brussels area. So that's to be coming up.
Great. Thank you,
Okay.
Anthony. See you around.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.